The Vatican announced today that the new pope is going to be named Pope Leo XIV. The name was announced by the official Vatican newspaper, L'Osservatore Romano. The announcement came after the first consistory of the new papacy, which is basically a meeting of the cardinals with the new pope. It was held in the Vatican's Apostolic Palace. Before the announcement, there were over 500 different possible names being considered. Now, why do they have to choose a new name? Well, it's because the new pope has to choose a new name. The reason is because he used to be known as Cardinal Robert Prevost. And in the Catholic Church, when someone becomes pope, all the other cardinals have to choose new names. They can't use their old cardinal name once they become pope. So this is what the Church said about the name that was chosen. Here it is. The Holy Father has decided to take the name of Pope Leo XIV. This is a name that recalls the great Gregorian reform in the 11th century, a reform prompted by the same Saint Leo, who was then Bishop of Rome, against the backdrop of the investiture contest. Now, if you don't know who Saint Leo IX was, don't worry, because no one else does either. But he was an important figure in the Catholic Church back in the 11th century, during a time when popes had a lot of power. So much power, in fact, that kings and emperors didn't like it. So they started to fight back. This period of fighting between the popes and the kings and emperors is known as the investiture controversy. Now, luckily for the Church, they had Pope Gregory VII, who was able to successfully fight back against the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV. The two eventually made up, but that's not important right now. What's important is that the Church looks back at this pope as someone who helped restore the Church to its former glory. So obviously, taking the name Leo is very fitting for someone who wants to restore the Catholic Church to its former glory. So where did they come up with the number 14? Well, there have been 267 popes in the history of the Catholic Church. Now, some of you may be thinking, wait, didn't they just say there were only 266 popes? That's because there have been a few popes who have held the office multiple times. For example, there was Pope Gregory VIII, Pope Sylvester, and Pope Pius IX. Popes who have held the office multiple times are counted as multiple popes, even though it's the same person. Now, adding to the confusion, sometimes a pope will resign instead of dying. When this happens, they get a special name, which is a combination of the numbers for the pope that they were and the numbers for the pope that they would have been if they did not resign. For example, Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013 after being pope for only 8 years. If he didn't resign, he would have been the 267th pope. Since he did resign, he is the 266th pope, and the 267th pope is the current pope, Pope Francis. So as you can see, the math works out. There have been 267 popes. Now, since there have been so many popes, there aren't that many names left for the new pope to choose from. In fact, there are only 13 names left. The next pope could be Pope John XXVII or Pope Paul X. Basically, the Church goes through these names in order, until they find one that they like. Sometimes they skip a name or two, like when Pope Pius XI skipped over Pius XII. Sometimes they go back to a name that hasn't been used in a while, like when Pope Francis chose to use a name that hadn't been used since 1325. And sometimes they use a completely new name, like when Pope John Paul II chose the name John Paul. Anyway, there aren't that many good names left, so they probably just went with the one that they thought best fit the new pope. One thing that we do know is that his name won't be Pope Emeritus. This is a name that was created for Pope Benedict XVI after he resigned in 2013. He wanted to keep the name Pope, but also didn't want to hold the office. So the Church created a new name for him, kind of like a consolation prize. Well, that's it. We now know that the next pope will be known as Pope Leo XIV. I guess it was pretty obvious, though, when you think about it. The last 3 popes have all taken Latin names, so it only made sense that this pope would too. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you really did enjoy it, then please subscribe. Thank you for watching.